And again, the conditions are horrendous. I remember one very sad moment. In the corner sat a young woman with a baby on her bosom, but that poor baby was already dead. And there were babies, and there were adults, and so forth. Food we had very little, but you see, they put one little bucket of water when we first got in, and another bucket for bathroom facilities. Now that bucket of water for 80 people disappeared the first hour, and it was never replaced. We went for 3 salad days without water. So if I would highlight the most tragic phase of this trip was thirst. You should never ever even imagine that, how horrible that is. Your mouth is so dry, your lips are chapped. And what happens psychologically, your mind all the pain is disappearing. I mean, all your other problems. The only thing you can focus on, if I could only have a drop of water. So the train is going at a very slow pace, because remember, there are military trains crossing the railroad tracks for the war efforts. So sometimes we have the boxcar is shifted to the back of the railroad track, and we're standing there, and some of the people who are near the window, they reach their hands out to get something, but people are not helping, or they're afraid to help. I don't have the answer. Anyhow, now after a 3-day horrendous journey, we arrive in an unknown destination, which we found out later was Auschwitz. Here, they open the boxcars, and a strange-looking man with striped uniform and speaks another language comes aboard, and somehow you understand sign language. He tells you that the little bit of bag of stuff that you brought from home, don't take it, you will get it later. You never ever receive even the last stitch of clothing or whatever what you had in that bag. That was taken away. Now we exit the train, and the orders are that the men have to be going in that direction, and the women has to be lined up here. And that's the last time I see my father and all the men who came with us. Now we are women. Now remember, I told you that there are this transport load of people, so there are several thousand people lined up what they call a ramp. And now we have to keep going forward, and after a distance, we are faced with a group of Nazi officers, and their hands go up like this. So we understand, stop. So we stop, and one Nazi officer steps forward and not a word. You see, we are no more human beings. We don't have names, we are nothing. Just points at you this way, points that way. My mother, who was a very young-looking 42-year-old, and in relatively good health, was pointed that direction. And I moved this way, and I kind of waved to her, and I say, I'll see you later, Mother. Unfortunately, later never comes. And once I am directed, you see, by this time you are a zombie, you are a robot. And you're so tired, you don't even know what is happening. You just follow orders, hollering and orders. So very fastly, it happens like this. You go into a room, and you have to disrobe completely. Fold up your clothes, put it down, you'll get a shower, you retrieve the clothes. You never see even the last underwear that you came in from home. That's taken away from you. Now they take you into another room, and that was one of the worst experiences at that stage of my life. We are standing stark naked, and from the corner room, there are a group of girls coming towards us, and they are screaming from the top of their lungs. And they look so funny. They look comical. What has happened, they shaved their hair bald, all the body hair shaven, and if that's not bad enough, they sprayed disinfectants on it. Now the irony here is that we didn't realize that 5 minutes from that point on, we would have become identical to them.
Mm.
So now this is done, and now comes the shower. Now I want you to know that don't even think of a shower that you took at home. This is an empty room with about 50 shower heads screwed into the ceiling, and literally a trickle of water is reaching your body. There's no soap, there's no towels, there's no underwear, clean clothes. From here, with your dripping body, you're taken to another room, and there you see a mountain of clothing, of all kinds of clothing. And there's a person behind it, and they throw a garment at you. They don't look at you if you're tall, short, fat, skinny, whatever. So I ended up with a long slip, no underwear, no shoes. For shoes, we got a flip-flop that had wooden soles. And now, here we are. And by this time, we haven't eaten for days. And so on, nothing, no, there was no food given from the time we exited the train or nothing. Now they take us into an empty room. The room would hold about 200 people lying down. By the way, there's no furniture in this room. It's just a wooden floor. And then, once they put us into the room, we were 500. Now, even that was scientifically coordinated. We would lay down like sardines in the can, you know, in an angle, and one next to another. And then we would put our flip-flops under our head for a pillow, and the body heat next to you was your blanket. Now here comes another irony. They put buckets in the room, 2 buckets for 500 people for bathroom facilities. Now they had a toilet which was called a latrine. That was a large hole that was dug in the courtyard, and a wooden plank was across it, and seats were carved out. Open space, and that's where you went to use the toilet. But for the night, they wouldn't let us go out. So, night, well, at the crack of dawn, up, out. And by the way, your mother taught you to brush your teeth and wash your face, put on clean clothes. 0. As we were in that crumpled clothes for the night, out we had to go. And now came another torture, which called the counting. No electronic gizmos, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we were a unit of 500, which meant that there were like older prisoners as supervisors. They graduated to that honor. So they would count, and let's say that out of 400, out of the 500, they would end up in their counting for like 492. The counting would start over again and over again without stop. Some of these countings could take 2-3 hours in the blazing sun. This is already June. In the courtyard there wasn't a blade of grass, there wasn't a tree, there was no shades. Our girls were getting sunburned to the extreme. There was nowhere to hide, there was nowhere to sit down. If you can picture ants crawling all over in a designated area, because we were not permitted to go beyond that section. And we would not recognize our friends. We literally had to look into their eyes and listen to the voices before we would get to know one another, because we were so unrecognizable. And this counting went on several times a day. But to this day, I cannot figure out the rationale behind the counting. Reason. Every so many 100 yards, there were Nazi women guards who had police dogs with them watching us. 2, every couple of 100 yards apart, there were watchtowers with a soldier aiming a machine gun at us. 3, we were surrounded by electrified barbed wire fence. Now you tell me, where in heaven's eve we could have escaped to, but we really looked like hell. There's no other way of putting it. But they kept counting and counting. Food, I don't think I want to spoil your appetite, but it was so bad, so little, so smelly, and we had only one mug for 5 people. So they would ladle out this horrendously green liquid, and on the first day, I'll never forget, we were gagging on it, literally gagging on that food. And the old-timers said, give me your food. And at that time, we couldn't understand, how could they? But then we realized that this will be our stable diet, so we better or else. And when you have to share this little bucket of food, number 4, number 5 was watching how many swallows you took, so there is something left because there were no seconds. So all in all, life was indescribably bad. I mean, there are so many atrocities and so forth. Now, I have to tell you that the Hungarian transport was taken to an adjacent camp near Auschwitz called Birkenau. About a year before we came from Hungary, they decided that there will be an influx of prisoners coming in, and they have to find a space for them to be sorted, to be killed, because Birkenau was the location where the crematoriums were. And anyhow, so we are in Birkenau. That's why we do not have any bedding, like some of the Auschwitz-related photos you will see with some bunk beds and with the prisoners. They didn't bother with any of that because we were to be destroyed as soon as possible. And they did a pretty damn good job of destroying the Hungarian transport. Out of the 447,000, 375,000 were 24/7 working the crematoriums in about a 2-month span. So this is big. But we don't know any of this at that point. So we are at the camp for maybe a week or thereabouts, and start wondering, and we asked the old-timers, when are we going to see our family? Do you know how soon we can see our family? Inevitably, these old-timers would point to the 5 chimneys. That's where they are. So we couldn't comprehend.